welcome to the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. Today we have on Sheree Carella from Realty One out in Bakersfield. Very excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for giving us some time. I know that being a realtor can be really time consuming and things move around, so it's always good when we can get people on. So thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I know that before we started, we were talking. What's the exact name of your guys' brokerage?
So the company itself, the franchise is Realty One Group, and our individual franchise is Realty One Group Strong. We have 3 offices in Bakersfield.
And is the strong name indicator of the broker, or is it like a different type of Realty One?
Yes, the broker himself for our
Okay.
Bakersfield franchise.
All right, awesome. That's good to know. Yeah, I just had somebody on not too long ago, and we were talking about Remax and how they have different indicators on there. Because we have near us a Remax Gold, and I always thought that was like a pretty cool name, like
Yeah.
super high end luxury or whatever it is. So we'd love to jump in and kind of talk about to start out, what your experience is, how you got into real estate, why you decided to, kind of take that leap. I know that it can be really stressful. So what was that experience like for you?
So I got my license about 6 years ago. My aunt is in real estate and kept telling me how great I would be at it. I had a background in sales at that time. So I studied hard, passed the test the first time, got my license. And in the beginning, I actually joined a brokerage. I was in LA at that time. So I joined a brokerage having a celebrity background actually, because I worked as a wardrobe stylist in the fashion industry. So our brokerage was focused specifically on sports and entertainment celebrity clientele.
Wow.
So that was me working under a broker there and learning a little bit about farming and so forth. And a lot of we helped some NBA players and so forth get temporary vacation homes over summer for them and their family and stuff like that. So that was the beginning. And then I realized that I had a strong interest in multifamily development and real estate development, but there's so much to learn on all of that. So I fully dove in and started researching investors and trying to find off market properties because in LA, the investors there are pretty savvy and they see a lot of opportunities across their desk. So it's hard to know like what their interests are if you don't really know development too much. There's a lot of regulations around how many units you can build on a certain lot of land and so forth, like how learning the cost per door and so forth. So I fully dove in and focused on that instead and shifted into that world and that was all off market. So it was all about building my personal network. So I got a great network on that. And I actually sold a multifamily building in Koreatown, which was like a great first sale as a new agent.
That's pretty
So
cool.
that was really exciting. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got started. And then now I moved to Bakersfield to a total different area and I'm focusing on residential specifically.
That's awesome. So, I mean, there's a lot to dive into there. So I want to step back a little bit. If I remember correctly, you owned your own business, right?
Yeah, so I'm still partnered in a tech company, and that ended up taking a lot of my focus. So when I was in LA, I sold the multifamily building, and then I went full-fledged into launching a startup tech company. And so I pulled away from real estate completely because finding off-market properties and trying to market that to investors, it's like what you put in is what you get out. So it was
Right.
just nonstop with me having to focus on that and then getting pulled into a tech startup. So I had to take a step down from real estate and focus more on the tech thing. And now that that company is doing well on its own, I was able to kind of step back and let that side of things still run itself. And now I can focus more on real estate again.
That's all. And so the fashion thing, who were you working for when you were doing that?
Oh, for the fashion side of things, I was a myself as a celebrity stylist, and then I also ran a company alongside an owner for a brand itself, as a fashion brand. So having that background and working with celebrities, that was how I was able to get my foot in the door with the celebrity entertainment brokerage. I actually met him at a runway show that one of the brands I was overseeing was participating in, and it was at a Rolls Royce dealer that we had a runway show. So he met me there, and then I got my license, and it all kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super interesting way. I think a lot of times people are thinking, like, well, how am I going to leverage what I've done now and move into the real estate market, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody works in a profession where they're meeting a lot of people, they're mingling. I mean, I think anybody that's in kind of sales, this is an easier transition for them because they kind of have that background, they have that kind of personality. And LA is an interesting place too, right? Because the market is unique in the way that there's a lot of high end properties there. There's a
Mhm.
lot of high end clientele that can be very difficult to break into if you're not already in that scene. So it's interesting that you kind of had that connection. You were able to make that. Did you find that you were able to use that? I mean, obviously you used it to get into that brokerage, but how effective was that for you going into real estate? Were you like able to call up some people and be like, hey, like I'm in real estate, I'm really excited, and I know that you have a lot of connections. How was that for you?
For the celebrity side, not as much, but I was able to learn from him because he had direct connections. But he taught me about farming and
Mm,
working my sphere of influence and so forth. So I was able to pick up on some things to at least get my foot in the door. I was with Keller Williams then, so I did like their startup training too to get some background knowledge there. But yeah, it's like you start and it's like, okay, what do I do next? And so he was able to help me dive into my sphere of influence list and so forth. But it was more just a great experience to be able to do walkthroughs with these celebrity clientels and learning to work with, luxury client. But having that styling background, I was able to know, there's privacy and
hmm
certain things that the way that you want to act around, a high end celebrity clientele and so forth too.
Right, a certain etiquette, I guess. Right.
Yeah,
hmm
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Keller Williams, I actually haven't had anybody on from Keller Williams. How was that experience for you? I've heard they have really good training up front. I don't know if that was your experience or if that was just your brokerage specifically and working with your broker. But what was your kind of experience working with Keller Williams?
Yeah, Keller Williams is great. There's a lot of education for new agents. I believe it was called the Mastermind. I mean, this was 6 years ago, so I feel like
Yeah,
it was
it's
a
a while ago.
million years ago. But yeah, so it was great to kind of learn a lot. But for me, I'm a very like I've got to be in it to learn it.
Mm,
There's only so much textbook and reading I can do to really process it, and it's just all I think like all about just diving in and getting your feet wet. And once I left the celebrity brokerage and focused on the multifamily, I joined with 100% commission type brokerage that
mhm,
I had heard about. So that's where I was with in LA. And that kind of being still newer is still difficult. Like, okay, how do I navigate this? What do I do? You're in escrow. Luckily, I had a broker that I partnered with on the off market property because that's who introduced me to the off market property itself. And then the investor was my client. So that's how those two came together. So he was able to really walk me through it. But usually with 100% brokerage, 100% commission brokerages, you feel a little lost. It's like,
mm,
okay, what support do I have? I had never met my broker, didn't meet anyone on the team. And so that's why when I brought my license to Bakersfield specifically, I still obviously 100% commission is very appealing. So I wanted to look for something like that, but I still wanted support. So
mhm,
that's what I found in Realty One Group is they have a ton of support. This broker, Freddie, offers great support on his own and the sales management team, but then there's a whole platform background and that helps you with like your marketing building and so forth. So That's definitely why I joined on now, because I definitely was in the dark with 100% commission brokerage that was not a big franchise like Realty One Group.
Right. I think for listeners, 100% commission is it's an interesting topic that I'd like to dive in with you a little bit, just because not a lot of brokerages, there's no such thing as 100% commission, in the way that no broker is going to bring you on and not make any money off of you, right? I mean, there's no way. They have overhead for having you on, even if, there's even if you don't come into the office or things like that. And there's a large liability for them to cover you. There's insurances they have, right? So
Mhm.
I'm curious, when you say 100% commission, what on the back end or fees, or what were you having to pay that the broker was able to make any money off of having you under them?
For the previous one, it was just a low monthly fee. And then you obviously use their teams for all the closing. So there's the
Hmm.
closing costs and using their transaction coordinator and so forth. So the same thing with Realty One Group. It's still very low, it's slightly higher, but I get a whole huge back end platform. So
Hmm.
I definitely, that was a no brainer for me, the value add there. So I pay a small monthly amount, and then you can pay additional if you want to use their transaction coordinator, and then the closing costs. And then once you close 10 deals in a year, then it's waived. So you don't have to pay those additional closing cost fees after that. So that's great.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I've had this conversations, especially with people who want to get into real estate, and obviously the biggest thing to people who are looking to make this switch or make this a side business or whatever it is their compensation, and that can sometimes be really frustrating, because in order to sometimes unlock that information, you have to go to these recruiting meetings, or have these hour-long dialogues with people so they can pitch you the entire business, and it's hard to kind of get underneath. But a lot of brokerages, they have scaling systems on, the more you sell, the less you get, the less your splits are, or some like what you're doing, where they're doing mandated fees up front, and then you get a higher commission, right? And I think for people who are trying to figure out what's best for you, there's no way for us to really tell you. You kind of have to fill out what makes the most sense. We've talked about this before with finding the best team. Ultimately, I think if you look at this from a standpoint of money, when you start, you're going to have a really difficult time. You really should kind of approach it from like, and kind of how you have, the back, you knew you needed a back end systems. You knew you kind of needed a team that was going to be there to help you, and things like that. And I think clearly you're comfortable with paying whatever that fee is, that monthly fee that you have, and things like that. Now, I do think, and I don't know how much experience you have on this, there are a lot of brokerages that this can be really difficult for people, because most people don't make their first deal in the first 6 to 9 months to get their real estate license. And
Mhm.
so if you're paying, let's just say $250 a month between desk fees and whatever other fees you have, printing fees and coaching fees and whatever, you know, that money starts to add up. So unless you have some reserves in place, if you're coming into this and you're like, I don't really have anything, I just spent all my money on getting licensed and
Yeah.
educated and everything, that can be a really difficult thing. And maybe that's a transition that you can make into another brokerage after you've made some money. But definitely, I think something to consider as you're getting into the industry, that you don't, you want to be cognizant of that, right? And you need to be comfortable. You need to have very clearly what makes the most sense for you. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Luckily, the fees here is, I don't know if I'm allowed to divulge or not. I could find out on that, but it's under $100, so it's
Hmm.
nominal. But yeah, getting in, it is, something to consider. It's not cheap to get started in real estate by any means. So it's I think with those fees though, and I've discussed this with some of the team, it helps weed out some of the people who are
Hmm.
not serious about it.
Yeah.
When I interviewed with a couple of 100% commission brokerages when I decided to join with Realty One Group, and the fees all varied And it's like, okay, by the time you pay for the transaction fees and your monthly fees, if you're only planning to get in, just hang your license, and it's definitely not the place to do it. But if you're planning on getting in and being active, then it's great. And it's, as you interview these brokerages, it's important to find out that, you have to interview them too and see what support they're offering. So for me to have like the sales training, we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm kind of going in it all over again as a refresher, as like a
Mm-hmm.
new agent. So to have that support with a 100% commission brokerage was just amazing. And then the whole back end platform, it's kind of like a mini Canva where you can plug in all your open house details and so forth, and it creates all the artwork for you. You can get graphics like at a snap of a finger. So that alone, I just saw the value. But yeah, it's definitely expensive getting started in real estate in general by the time you pay for your licensing, your MLS, your California Association of Realtors, your headshots, your business cards, your mailers. It's definitely a cost and something to consider, if you're really going to go into it full fledged and be serious about it.
Right. What were the licensing fees in LA? Here in
Um,
Sacramento, I think they're without paying a couple additional things that are not mandated. They're about $800 a year.
Yeah, I think it's about the same.
Okay.
But well, I know that there's a it's honestly, I get so lost with those fees. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, there's always something due.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time you're paying your MLS and your California Association of Realtors, and if you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get MLS, key access and so forth, yeah, I think it's usually twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's around like 800 to $1,000. Startup is typically higher, and when you're just renewing, then it
Mm-hmm.
gets lower. Um, so yeah, it's definitely, it gets costly as you get into it and you start diving deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I forgot about I pay a monthly fee for Supra Access.
Hmm.
That's for lock boxes, access, things like that. And then I think I pay a monthly fee for the MLS because I think the fees that you pay initially is you get the National Association of Realtors, you have to pay for that. You pay for the California Association of Realtors, and then you pay for your local. So we're the Sacramento Association of Realtors, and that helps you gain access to the multiple listing service, which is really interesting because a lot of realtors who are licensed, when you're licensed in a state, so you can technically do sales anywhere. And I've ran into this problem my first year, but you can only really access listings in your MLS. Right now, Sacramento is we share MLS access with 5 or 6 other MLSs. So it
Mm.
allows us to branch out further, right? I think we can go all the way into the Bay Area, we can go all the way up to Tahoe, into the, the foothills, into the Central Valley, I think all the way out to Merced. And so it gives us quite a bit, but like I can't access past that. So I'm kind of seeing the same thing you're seeing, right? I have to go online and see what's going on. I can't see what's going on in LA. And so it's interesting because our brokerage, we have a connection in LA and we do work out there from time to time. And so whenever we have to do that, you have to kind of weigh those options because then you have to purchase the MLS to be able to access properties out there, right?
Yeah.
So it can definitely add up, but I think that it's an interesting thing that you said where, you're weeding people out. And I think I think a lot of people would really appreciate that idea in general because the real estate market is so saturated right now. There's a whole nother conversation we can have about whether if competition's good, if you care about that at all. A lot of people who I talk to, they say, and it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. It only matters what I'm doing. But ultimately there are a lot of people out there who are not super competent in what they're doing. They're not getting coached correctly. They're in a really dire place because they've been spending so much money and don't have any real estate sales. And, that could be really difficult getting them as your realtor, right? And so I think by implementing things like you guys have, one, it not only will kind of weed out people, but also depending on your broker, most brokers want people there that want to be in the industry, who want to work, right?
Yeah.
And I know that we're going to have your broker on this week. And so it'll be fun to be able to talk to him and say, why did you decide to go with Realty One and have this compensation package the way you do? But ultimately, that's not how our brokerage works. But I do fully understand why you would kind of go in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because if you're paying a monthly premium, it behooves you to not be active in it for sure. And a lot of people see the glitz and the glamour on the reality shows and think, oh, I could go on the, you see $1 million listing, I could sell
Yeah.
that house and make $200,000 commission like they did on TV. So it's definitely just like any business. You have to treat it like it's your own startup business. It costs money to start a business,
Mm-hmm.
and you really have to put in the time and the effort. It just doesn't just fall on your lap by any means. So I did actually want to I pulled up some info. So yeah, we talked about the MLS being, in a specific region, but that's another reason why I liked Realty One Group is we have over 400 locations across 49 states.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also, if you don't have access to that area, you can always do a referral. So it's great now if I have someone in, some random state where I don't have access to, or in a different region, you have, your personal network, but if there was someone I didn't know in that area, I could pull it up and refer it out and still get my referral commission, which is nice too.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. Like, so I work at a smaller brokerage. And actually, you and I haven't had much of a conversation about what I do. But I'm kind of like a VP at our company where I take on coaching capacities. I do loans. I help on our real estate side because I'm licensed, and I run our media side. And so we're small. We have a small team, but we're expanding. But when you start up, and this is, I think, a very interesting like benefit that actually nobody's brought up, that when you have a nationally recognized team, you're able to reach out to other people in regions, right? So if you have somebody that, especially in California, people that are moving out of the state, you have a way to refer them over to and whatever other state or area they're going to work to, and get a referral fee off of that, right? And that's a big
Mhm.
benefit, right? Now, granted, there's a lot of people that advertise like we do referral fees, whatever it is, but to be able to keep it in the team, I think is very nice, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and let's say I'm selling someone's house in Bakersfield and they're moving to Tennessee, then I could be able to easily just pull up an office of ours in Tennessee and refer it out. So they're still getting like all the help. They're not just left in the dark as a client, like now where do I go? Now what do I do? So it's
Right.
nice to kind of be able to fully offer that support.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is a really not like, this is off brand a little bit about what we're talking about, but I think that, Selling Sunset is like such a huge show currently and has been for like the last 2 years. And you kind of brought up like that whole vision of like, this is what realtors do. They make money really easy. They get huge commission checks. I think
Yes.
especially people believe that in Southern California where properties are so expensive. And I really did like that show. I really started following him because I follow Graham Stephan, social media guy, just started doing real estate when he was 18. Check his stuff out. He's a super interesting guy, but he worked for the Oppenheim Group, and that's originally why I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this to see if he was on TV. And then I started watching the show, and I was like, this is really dramatized. I don't know how much of this is like real, but this is crazy. And then you see the commissions. I'm like, no, that's not how commissions are in Sacramento. But I realize that
Yeah.
their properties are vastly more expensive out there, and the commissions are bigger. But I don't know, kind of like if you've watched the show, if you have any views on it or opinions on it, I'd love to hear it if you do.
Oh yeah, I loved watching the show. Just obviously, the reality drama part of it is fun, but living in LA, it was like all recognizable areas. Like, okay, I know that neighborhood, and so
Hmm.
that was fun to relate to. But yeah, these huge commissions and the Lamborghinis, and that's a whole other lifestyle in
Hmm.
itself. But they obviously show the total commission. They're not factoring in what you're splitting with your brokerage and some environment like that. And
Hmm.
And but yeah, that I think is what these reality shows have what gotten a lot of people interested in wanting to be a real estate agent. So I just think it's important for people to know that it's not all glitz and glamour, and you really have to hit the pavement, especially, you know, if you're a newer agent in an area and you want to consider door knocking and things like that. Like that's not glamorous in
Yeah.
any
And you're
form,
probably
but
not
that's
driving your Lambo around, stopping
yeah,
and walking around
exactly.
in your $700 pair of shoes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's funny, you know, but I think and as the real estate market changes, it's the people who really want to put in the work or who's going to prevail. But that's actually how I never had focused much on residential after focusing on multifamily
Hmm.
in LA. And then I bought my home here in Bakersfield. The prices in LA were just crazy for what you'd get. And I saw the value just to go, you know, an hour and a half more north and what
Hmm.
we would get for the price. So I bought a property here. I could have represented us in the purchase, but they had multiple offers. It was when the market was going really crazy. So it was in my best interest to let the broker or realtor
Hmm.
double in the deal so she'd be in my corner for it. And I did not get good customer service at all. And
Mm.
so I was shocked. I was like, wow, this is like, as a first time home buyer, this is my experience. You know, I know what customer service is no matter what industry I come from. So that's where I was like, okay, well, she sells, you know, she would claim that she sells 60 houses a year and so forth. I'm like, if that's the customer service she gives to be able to be that successful, and that's why I should just focus on residential real estate. And so it's been hard because I'm brand new to the area and I
Hmm.
don't have a strong sphere of influence and a lot of relationships. So now it's just kind of working on my geo farming and focusing on my neighborhood and so forth, and getting myself out there, representing myself as a mom first and foremost. There's a big community of Bakersfield moms, and
Hmm.
having that relation is where I'm putting my focus now. But yeah, after seeing the customer service that was given from a different brokerage altogether, but it was just like, okay, maybe I could be successful in this area if she's that successful with, you know, a lack of customer service. So
Right. And I mean, we don't try not to talk too much crap on other realtors, but sometimes it's so frustrating working with other parties that either I don't know, right? I try to be pretty empathetic because I understand people have bad days or maybe there's something going on in their lives or whatever it is. So I always try to be that person. I try to come from it from that place. But there's other times where I'm just like, how are you still in this industry? How are you like closing deals? How do you have other listings up? And I guess like if to their customer, I mean, granted you were her customer, but to their customers, maybe they're showing a different face than on the back end or whatever. But it's never fun to be in a position where you spend a lot of money to get into a property and then feel like, wow, that was not a great experience for me. And you try to shake it off, but it kind of sticks with you a little bit. And I had that experience when I bought my house. I did do my own house, but as soon as it got to a point where it was pretty much like we were going to be locked in, that customer service went from like 100 down to like 40.
yeah.
I was like, come on, man. I'm like, we're right at the finish line. Like, let's just keep it up, would you please? Like, so I do want to touch back a little bit. You spoke about, how there's essentially, and when starting any business, there's going to be upfront fees. I will say that starting, in real estate is vastly, I think, cheaper than starting most other businesses. Now, I
Okay.
haven't started a lot of businesses, but I have started a business and I'm working on another. And I will tell you that, the first business that we started was about a $300,000 investment. Um, that's vastly cheap. It's vastly cheaper to become a realtor right now. You're gonna pay
Yeah,
for business
definitely.
cards. Maybe you get really nice ones, $100. You're gonna get headshots. Maybe that's a couple $100. You're gonna pay desk fees or whatever you're gonna do. So I'm not saying. I think the first year you might be in anywhere with education and registration and all this stuff, maybe a couple $1,000, right?
Yeah.
But if you can get out there and you can close the deal. And I think, the general idea is that if you tell people you're in real estate, if you're just telling people and they know generally, most people get at least one deal a year, right? And if you
Hmm.
get one deal a year at kind of the average price in California, um, you're going to have enough money to pay for your licensing and everything for about 3 or 4 years. So there's a lot of incentive. The money is, after everything comes out, after taxes and everything isn't great, but it'll pay for at least that initial part on itself. And then you can kind of get better, get the education, decide if this is really for you and dive into it, right? But you really do kind of got to get your feet wet and get that first deal for it to make
Sure.
sense, or you're just kind of spending a lot of money. And I know you said you started a business. I mean, can you agree? I mean, it's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, 1000% for sure. But it just depends, if you have something to supplement to your income as you're doing this too. Are you still keeping your full-time job or
Mm-hmm.
your part-time job to pay your every month kind of expenses and stuff like that too? But yeah, it's much cheaper than a startup company, depending what it is and what your overhead is. But
Mm-hmm.
it is something to consider,
Yeah.
definitely. But it's much cheaper for sure.
So, what was it like when you were in LA and you switched over to the 100% commission? And like, what was that experience for you? Was it stressful, especially like you're kind of a newer realtor, it sounds like, and you're doing something that you haven't really done before? I know you have like experience with working with people and sales and things like that, but it must have been a bit stressful on the real estate side, especially as you're building up to getting that first sale for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it was scary for sure. But then also the bright side was like, okay, I'm not going to give 40% of my commission up.
Mm-hmm.
So selling a multifamily home, 40% is a pretty significant number. So it was scary. And luck, I was able to close my first deal with luckily having the support of a co-broker that I had sold the property with specifically. So luckily I had that support. And but otherwise, yeah, I mean I was in the dark, and then, where do I go from here type thing. So that's why I think like having a team or some sort of community is really important, because then it's kind of an extra like someone's relying on you to
Mm-hmm.
show up. But when you're at some different 100% brokerages where you have zero relationship with the rest of the team or the broker, then it's kind of like you can slack off or get distracted or so forth. So I think having some accountability, that's the word, I guess, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking for. That having some accountability is really important to help you stay on track. And as you continue continued education and training and so forth, and at least just showing face and getting dressed up and going to the office, that helps you stay on track for sure, and keep your eye on the prize and what your main goal is.
Yeah, that can be. I think it can be kind of difficult. And obviously, I can only speak from my experience of working in our brokerage and working with my team. And we've had people come from other brokerages, so I've heard their experiences. I can't say that their experience is everybody's experience, but for us, we have no coaching fees, we have no desk fees, we don't have any additional fees. It's a flat 80-20 split, and we
Oh,
have
that's great.
other things on the back end that um, I think a lot of other brokerages have, where money gets reinvested into our teams, and helps them actually create like residual income that isn't based on their sales or anything like that. And so that system for us works really well, because kind of like you said, like we try to put everybody in a position where they can do their job ethically and from a place of at least the least amount of stress they can be at, right? I've had people come from other brokerages where they're a couple $1,000s into desk fees and printing fees and coaching fees and training fees, and I can tell how bad they want to get a sale. And
Mhm.
first off, it doesn't come off great to people when you're talking to them, right? But also, you know, we want to be able to say that you're going to be able to give them everything that they need without feeling like you have to close this, because when you have that sort of pressure, it does, it could sway you a little bit to push them to do something they don't want to do, right? We
Oh,
never want to come from that sort of place. And so it is, I think, having that team behind you, having somebody to support you, and being in a brokerage, wherever it is that you feel comfortable and then you feel like you have, that is great. Now, if you're the type of person who can just like go out, you're like, I don't really want to work with anybody, like I'm 100% good, that's awesome. I'd love to talk to you, because there's not a lot of people like that, especially if you're coming into an industry that is kind of convoluted in the way that there's a lot of laws. There's a very like, contracts are written really oddly, and you kind of have to learn that sort of stuff.
yeah.
But I do think that that's something to consider. So you are, you just moved to Bakersfield. Obviously, Bakersfield is vastly different than LA is. Obviously Metro LA, but I think even other further parts out of LA. How's that transition been for you? I mean, outside, it doesn't even really have to be about real estate, but like, are you like, okay, this is for me, this is a better fit for where I'm at in life? I have friends from Bakersfield. I know Bakersfield. So what's that been like for you?
I love it because, yeah, now my focus is my family. LA was great when my focus was career and social.
Hmm.
But now being family driven, Bakersfield was just a no-brainer, and it's so family oriented. And so that's where with real estate, I feel like I can find that connection because as a mother, I can talk about all the things Bakersfield that we love, all the family fun activities and so forth. So I'm utilizing that for my marketing, which is great. So I'm focusing on doing like some YouTube videos of fun family places to do and all things Bakersfield and why I love it. Like people think, oh, Bakersfield from LA, but there's so many benefits to Bakersfield that I think should be known. And those like watching videos about that living in LA, and there's another realtor who I love, and she does a lot of videos all about all things Bakersfield, and those were great things to watch when we were home searching,
Hmm.
to see like, okay, is this something that we would realistically be able to survive with this change? And so that's where I think being relatable is so important, and then being so customer service driven and centric is also an advantage that I have. So yeah, it's been a great transition. We love just everything that there is to offer. There's nature, there's the west side, which is all the same type of businesses and shopping and things that I could ask for. So, but we love that I live right near the river. And so at any given time and in the evening, I finish work early and we go and take my son to go fishing and just all the great outdoors. You have the sequoias, just literally from my house, I drive 20 minutes to the sequoias. So there's so many benefits around that. Obviously, on the real estate side, the cost of real estate is a whole lot different
Hmm.
than in LA. So selling properties, I'd have to sell a lot more properties in Bakersfield to equate to, sell at least two or three properties to equate to one home sale in LA. But I'm just all about the customer service and having that like personal experience of moving to Bakersfield and what it's like. So there's a lot of people moving currently from LA to Bakersfield and probably feel clueless about, what areas or, what are the benefits of the region. So having that personal experience, I think, is something that I have great on my end.
Yeah, I always jump at any opportunity to talk about marketing, because that's my favorite part of really anything that I do. So
Yeah.
I love to hear that you're doing that. And there's a lot of kind of numbers that come out of like what a successful realtor looks like, and I think that really is just going to depend on what you want your lifestyle to look like. I think most brokerages, they want their realtors doing at least 10 to 15 deals a year, but depending on the area you're at, you can make a relatively good living like doing 6 to 8 deals a year. So
Hmm.
that's going to be up for you. But from the, let's just say that 10% of realtors are kind of really successful where they're doing those 20 to 50 deals a year, whatever that is, right? Um, when I look at what they're doing, they're the ones that are doing marketing effectively. They're the ones that are doing branding effectively. They're the one that are communicating effectively. And so I love to see, like someone like you who is kind of getting into the real estate population and residential and being like, yeah, I'm already kind of thinking about these videos I can do and how I'm going to attack them. Because that is a really difficult part for people who don't have that sort of experience. And I'm not sure how much experience you have, but how are you going to attack your marketing, your advertising? Have you kind of laid out a plan for yourself?
Yeah, luckily, with my tech company, my background was sales and marketing. So I have that advantage of kind of knowing what it takes for social media and then the videos and the importance of that. So yeah, right now I'm focusing a lot on Instagram and Facebook and so forth. There's a third party that I just signed up with that is helping me build out my website, and you can have it connected to MLS, so your website has
Mm-hmm.
the current listings integrated on your website and so forth. And they also help create blogs for your Facebook and your website to build SEO. So I know the importance of SEO, which is helpful, and just seeing the success with other realtors in these YouTube videos. The realtor that I mentioned that I love to follow, Angel, she posts a ton of videos all about Bakersfield, and she's posted recently all of the success and the families that she's gotten into homes thanks to meeting them from her YouTube videos. So I'm definitely making that a focus, but with kind of the mom edge of like all things family fun and being a local Bakersfield mom. So that's pretty much my position that I'm marketing myself is as a Bakersfield mom specifically, and then working on Instagram, and I'm creating my assets through Canva and then the Realty One Group marketing platform that there is. So just focusing on that and doing next, my plan is to do more of like Instagram live and Facebook live videos and going through new construction homes on walkthroughs and getting some extra content from that, and just taking advantage. Literally any day I show up at the office, I try to take a picture in the office as just some sort of extra content. And but then also the importance of providing education to potential clients is another important one. So just real estate tips and so forth. So I'm trying to immerse myself in all of that and asking, other type of real estate related businesses for their intake, like you being in lending, like, hey, Michael, can you help me? What are some lending tips? What are some rebuttals that right now a lot of people talk about interest rates and so forth? What are some things that I could put myself out there? Like, let's do maybe an interview on, and I could post it on YouTube and my Facebook and Instagram. Just being like an education real estate source all around, so people aren't completely clueless. A lot of people have a lot of questions about the current interest rates and so forth.
Absolutely. I think if you're going into real estate, if there's two people, right? There's those who have been in the real estate game for a long time. They have a steady base of business coming in because business for a very long time was person to person, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
created those relationships. They were in Rotary and they were going to Chamber of Commerce meetings and they were going to all of the events in their city, right? And they were making those connections, and sometimes they're like want to refresh and they're not super savvy with social media marketing and advertisement, right? Then there's
Mm-hmm.
the people that are brand new to the industry, and they're like, I find a lot of times they feel really scared to talk about things because they feel phony, right? They feel fake because they're like, I'm brand new. I barely know what I'm talking about. I just passed the test. And, I tell people just learn something and just talk about that one thing, right? And I
Yeah.
think from you have it kind of right, you've hit the nail on the head. The first thing you have to be is an educator, right? You have to provide information. Not enough realtors are doing that. They're kind of gatekeeping that information because they think it's going to be, it's what's going to get you to talk to them. But ultimately, you're never going to be able to give enough information to answer everybody's questions. Everybody's individual, right? They have their own scenarios they have to work out with. And the market is constantly shifting depending on, well, everywhere, but obviously it's going to, what's happening in your community is going to be different than what's happening in my community. So I think educators one is like perfect. And then for you, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? You're going to go with, I'm a mom. Let's do family stuff. What's available in Bakersfield? That's perfect branding, right? I think you have an opportunity to do transplants as well. People that are moving from LA or anywhere else that are moving into Bakersfield. Like you said, you saw those videos and that was kind of your guide, and you want to be that person for people when they're coming out here, right? And then lastly, I mean, I'm sure we could think of a lot more things, but I do think there's this cool opportunity because of your fashion background and your knowledge base for that, right? Just kind of like as a side piece, like because you enjoy this, because you do real estate, this is where the stores are that I think are really great. These are the styles I like. It doesn't have to be necessarily high end, but it can just be something you enjoy as a way to get information out as well, because this is part of what your identity is, right? This is part of what your branding is. And this is what your past education is, right? And it gives you kind of a starting point to have conversations with people, especially as you're breaking into this brand new market. And I think that because of, from what you've told us from your background, you're kind of ready to go. And I'm hoping to see a lot of content coming out from you, because I don't get to see that a lot from people. And it kind of makes me sad, because I'm like, they're like, well, how do I build business? I'm like, well, are you in the community? They're like, no. I'm like, well, are you posting online? They're like, no. And I'm like, well, those are the two ways. So you got to pick one, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think figuring out your identity, and maybe it's you love cooking or you love home interior decorating or so forth, and then keeping that as an extra focus. So it's not just always in your face real estate, and just kind of being personable and relatable. Like we're all people, and being a mother, I can relate to other mothers and so forth, and having a family. Just having some sort of connection to your potential client base and just being able to build potential content on that is great.
How long have you been out in Bakersfield now?
I'm going on to a year.
Okay.
Now.
Well, you've been out there for a while then. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought that you just moved out there. So you've been out there for a while. How familiar are you with how things are going in the market there?
In the real estate end of things, I just brought my license over because I had to transition. All my license was still hanging in LA County, and I was still paying my membership dues in LA County. So I just brought it all to Kern County. So it's like I'm just fully diving in. There's a lot to learn. I'm playing on the MLS and looking at those things and just trying to just pick up information from other people. And that's by going, like we talked about it, like showing face and having that community and accountability with the team is so important. So even in a brokerage, like in your environment where it's a 20%, 80% split, like that's just so important. The value that it brings alone, just to be able to soak in knowledge from people who know the marketplace better than you if you're brand new at it. So that's what I'm just basically trying to be a sponge at the moment and collect as much information as possible.
Yeah. So the way that we got, I saw you post like, hey, I'm with Realty One. I think, you're kind of just letting everybody know. And, obviously I do lending. And so I try to reach out to realtors and just be like, hey, if you don't have a lending partner already, let me know. We do education. We help out with whatever it is. And we're super competitive in the market. We work with every major lender in the country. And so I'm sure I pushed some sort of pitch like that at you. And then obviously I wanted to get you on the podcast because I think the last time we connected was probably in 2015, maybe. Some 16, 17, somewhere around there. And I was working in a nonprofit. You had donated a bunch of clothes and things like that. And obviously that was super generous of you. Thank you again. And I think that's really the last time we ever talked. And then I saw you post, and so I was like, I want to, make sure if you do need any help, let me know. But Have you been following what's going on in the mortgage market? I know that you're not in mortgage, and I know that you're just kind of getting back into things, but it's really interesting what's happening, what just happened with the feds and things like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like I said, ask as many questions as possible to any lender friends and like fill me in. I actually just talked to another lender friend yesterday because I was coming up with a marketing plan about why it's beneficial for a buyer to purchase in Q4 of the year and
Hmm.
do a whole marketing push around that. So I think it's great to have that knowledge of where interest rates are going and what that looks like for 2023 and so forth. So I mean, I definitely need to learn more on it. But yeah, I mean, the information that I could receive is unlimited, it seems like. So yeah, I'd love to learn more for sure.
I think a lot of realtors that are coming in the market, I mean, sometimes you might have like exclusive partnerships with your brokerage, not often, just because brokerages like to be relatively flexible with who they work with because lenders change their guidelines and rules and things like that. Obviously, not anything that particularly deals with Fannie and Freddie Mac, but they change this stuff. So brokerages typically don't have like strong connections, and that's even with like inspectors like come out and like do inspections for your houses, like all that stuff. It's a lot of times it can be very like, oh well, Google it, or here's maybe somebody who had worked with. But I think if you're brand new, there's a lot of value in starting to create a partnership or partner a bunch of partnerships with especially loan officers, because ultimately there's not a lot that you do in real estate that will teach you the loan side, right? And the finance part is extremely important for your client to be able to close on their home and ultimately for you to make money, right? And so unless you're actively seeking that information and you kind of have the background education to understand it, it can be really convoluted. I mean, all finance in America is confusing, right? It's designed that way. So only a select amount of people really understand it and benefit from it. And so I think that there's a lot of benefit in that. I would urge you guys, get in contact with title companies, get in contact with escrow companies and inspectors and all these people, and ask, see if they can give you some time, see if you can buy them some coffee or a meal or whatever, and get some education, especially on the loan side. You need to have, because especially right now in the changing market, you need to have up-to-date information because you're going to be putting that out. And most of the time, that's what people want to know. Like, can they actually get into these homes? And if you don't know what's going on, and a good example of this, right? I know when all the Fed meetings are going to happen, and they have plot charts that they put out, but not a lot of people know where to find them, that essentially say this is what we're projecting to do at these meetings, the next 3 meetings, right? And so what happens is lending companies build in price increases before they actually make announcements. So it's not as big of a shock to consumers. And so what happens is there's already an increase built in, and then there's an additional increase based on what happens at these Fed meetings. So there's one that just happened a week ago, a little less than that. There's another one happening at the beginning of November and another one happening at the middle of December. All signs show that rates are going to go up probably 8%. We think that by the middle of next year, they could be all the way up to 10%. Right now, they're right about 7%. They went up they were at 6, they've gone up almost an entire percent, right? So why that's important is, for the most part, that's about an additional $200 to $300 a month that you're going to be paying. I mean, that's really like what it comes down to. And that affects your debt to income ratio. That affects how much of a house you can buy. And so, I think creating those partnerships, and you clearly understand that, but for the people that don't know this, and if you're new in the industry, you have to create those relationships. You have to get that knowledge base. And the good thing is, like, people like myself who will just kind of give you the information, you take the notes, and now you have 5 to 10 videos that you can make immediately, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really nice way to, I think, create partnerships and things like that. And so jabber on about that all day, honestly. But we're getting towards the end of the podcast. But I did want to ask, kind of what are your future plans? What do you want to do? Is real estate going to be like your main thing? Do you want to be doing 50 deals a year, or kind of what have you envisioned for yourself working with Realty One?
Yeah, I'm definitely focused on real estate. I still have my hands in tech startups and so forth. But I the importance to me of being able to build time with my family too. I mean, obviously real estate is very time consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that many deals is time consuming, but having flexibility of a schedule is really important to me. So real estate is definitely going to be my focus, and staying with Realty One Group with all the support and benefits that they have offered me thus far. I definitely see that in my future. So at present, it's just kind of me hitting the ground running for a brand new market, and working on farming and so forth based on like my geography, my local neighborhood. That's just my current focus in utilizing social media. I mean, marketing is so crucial. And as
Mm-hmm.
you said, having this knowledge with lending partners and so forth, just kind of being able to navigate these conversations and knowing, okay, what do I answer when the question's this and so forth. It's just, you have to fully immerse yourself in all sorts of aspects of knowledge.
Do you have a goal for 2023 of how many houses you'd like to close?
I honestly haven't thought of that, because I just feel like, I'm hitting the ground running, and I will work as hard no matter what. If I'm selling, one house or 20 houses, I'm still going to provide customer service. So for me, that's just number one. It's just always maintaining, um, being providing positive customer service for my clients. But no, I honestly haven't thought of an actual number. I'm just going to continue working as hard as I would no matter what.
I mean, I think that's a as best of way that you can really design it, right? I mean, for me, I'm definitely the type of person where I'm like, well, this is the number I need to set. This is the number that I need to hit. But, what are some parting words that you might have for somebody that's just moved to a new community? They're starting out in that community, or even some advice for brand new realtors, because you have been in real estate for a while, you've had your license. Do you have any kind of parting words for them? That would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think finding the right fit for your brokerage family is so important, and just asking the types of questions, that finding the support in the beginning as a new agent. There's just so much. It's like, okay, well, what do I do? It's very scary. So finding a great support system is very important, and then picking a brand identity, and staying on track on the marketing side of that is really important, and just getting involved in the community, like we talked about, like getting in these Bakersfield moms groups, and these play date groups for me as a mother and so forth. But whatever that may be, if it's charity or so forth, just staying really involved in the community so you can meet more people.
Perfect. So before we go, what if you want your social media, your YouTube that you're going to put out, your Facebook, Instagram, how can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Sheree Carella, ShereeCarella. And you can also search for Sheree Carella on Facebook. I have a Realty fan page, and YouTube is also under Sheree Carella as well.
I love it. So if you're out in the Bakersfield area, surrounding areas, or I guess as far as you're willing to drive or fly, I don't really know your situation, but if you're out in that area, definitely look up Sheree, Realty One. Really excited to have her broker on really soon. So tune in for the next podcast. You'll get to kind of see these partnerships that they're creating. Thank you again for being on. Again, this is the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.